Alright students, so today we're going to talk about solving one-step equations with addition and subtraction. Okay, what you have here is called the addition property of equality. Basically this thing says that no matter what you start with, if you add the same thing to both sides, it will be equivalent to what you started off with. So in this case they're adding c to both sides of the equation. They started off with a equals b and they added c to a and and c to b. So here you can imagine that this thing was the a and this one is the b, and then this is what's being added. The 3 is being added to the a. This stuff is a, and the 3 is being added to this is the b. Okay, so these two sides are still equivalent, and the same thing applies for subtraction. You can subtract one side, you got to subtract the same thing on the other side to keep it equivalent. You've probably seen these rules before. And it's the same idea, it's just written out more detailed for you. What is the solution of x plus 13 equals 27? Well, as you can see, this is addition. We want to subtract 13. So some teachers will write it where they have the original problem, and then you write subtract 13. Here's your original problem. Here, subtract 13. So both sides has subtraction on it. Okay. Some people will write it as if it was the original problem like this, and then they went ahead and subtracted 13. They wrote it below. Doesn't matter if you write it below or you write it right next to it horizontally. Doesn't matter. You're still doing the same idea. You're subtracting 13 from the left side. You're subtracting 13 from the right side. So here, a positive 13 and negative 13 will end up being 0. Most teachers don't write it out like this, but this is basically what this means. These two are zeroed out or canceled out. The other side here is going to be 14. So x plus 0 is just x. Anything plus 0 is that anything. And over here on this side, you got 14. You can plug it back into your original problem and see if it works. 14 plus 13 equals 27. Yep, that's correct. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Negative 7 equals b minus 3. Once again, you're trying to solve for the variable. The variable is here, b. You want this all by itself, so that means to solve for it. So you want to make a negative 3 go away, basically. So if you have negative 3, what do you have to add to it? Well, you have to add positive 3 to it. Okay, so if you had negative 7 over here, I don't know why it keeps doing that. If you had negative 7 over here, you'd have to add, did it again, positive 3 to it. Okay, this still keeps the equation balanced because on this side you added 3 and on that side you added 3. Of course, right here when we have a negative 3 and a positive 3, that's just 0. So if you like, you could write it out like this, b plus 0. Most people skip that step and they'll just have b. A negative 7 and a plus 3 means there's going to be more negatives. And it says negative 4. If you need a more detailed explanation, there's negative 7. This is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 negatives. And you got 3 positives, 1, 2, 3. And you see that these become zeros, meaning there's 4 negatives left. And that's where this comes from. Okay, pretty basic. Hopefully you understand all of that stuff. You've seen it before. This should just be a good review. What is the solution of the equation? So once again, try to get the m all by itself. You want to go ahead and subtract 8. Subtract 8 is what it's telling you to do, so you want to do the opposite. We're going to add 8. You do it to one side, you got to do it to the other side. That means that m plus 0, if you really wanted to write that, this thing zeroes out. Make sure they're opposites and they become 0, or it doesn't really work. Negative 14 plus 8 means this is a negative 6. So m plus 0 is just m. And this is negative 6. There's your solution. You could plug it in right there and see if it works. Negative 6 minus 8 equals negative 14. Okay, same idea over here. You're trying to get the y all by itself, this part. So that means you want a negative 3/2 to go away. And I know this looks confusing because it's fractions. If you really wanted to, you could change the decimals, but that's not necessary. Add 3/2. Add the same thing. Just like over here, you added 8. It's the same number, but it's opposite. This is the same number, but it's opposite. Add 3/2 to one side of the equation means you need to add 3/2 to the other side of the equation. Okay, so if we're looking at the right side here, a negative 3/2 and a positive 3/2, they're just going to zero each other out or cancel each other out. You're just left with y on that side. Over here on this side of the equation, you got 1/2 plus 3/2. So if you had, say you got, here is a half of a cookie or something. Okay, here's another half of a cookie. So that's 2/2. Let's do 1, 2, 3. So there's 1/2, and you're adding it with these 3/2. 1, 2, 3/2. How many total halves are there? 4/2. 1/2 plus 3/2 gives you 4/2. 4/2, as you might recognize, is the same as 2. So 2 equals y. Alright? It's really not that difficult. Hopefully the fractions don't throw you off too much. Same idea applies for multiplication. So whatever you multiply on one side, you're going to multiply on the other side. Multiplication is really handy when we have fractions, or because that's division, and you want to undo division with its opposite, multiplication. So we're multiplying 3 on one side, means you're going to multiply 3 on the other side. This multiplying by 3 will undo the dividing by 3, so you just end up with x on that side, and this would be 6. Same thing works right here, where this is multiplying, but you want to undo it with its opposite, division. Divide by 5. You divide by 5 on this side, you have to divide by 5 on that side. Okay, so you can undo division with multiplication, you can undo multiplication with division. Here's an example. You want to undo multiplication with its opposite of division. Divide on one side, you have to divide on the other side. You can punch this in a calculator. I believe, if I remember right, this is 1.6. Okay, you might want to double check me on that, but done. One step. Same idea right here. This is x divided by 4. So how do you undo division? With its opposite. The opposite of division is multiplication. So you start it with x being divided by 4. You want to undo the division with multiplication. So multiply this side by 4, which means you also got to multiply that side by 4. Most people skip this step, but really what's happening here is we're multiplying two fractions. Fractions are multiplied straight across. You get 4x over 4. 4 times x is 4x. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is the same as 1x. Okay, so over here you get negative 36. So 1x equals 36. 1x is just x, so x equals 36. Most people skip all this stuff. That's fine. If you know that you're going to times by 4, and eventually what's going to happen is this 4 cancels out that 4, that's great. You end up with just x. I mean, you bring yourself all the way down to this step. But please understand where it comes from. We're timesing by the 4 by the x and the 1 by the 4. You get 4 over 4. 4 over 4 is the same as 1. 1x is just x. Okay? You can watch this video as many times as you want until it makes sense. This is being divided. How do we undo division? Hopefully you're thinking multiplication. So we're times by 3. Times by 3 on one side, you get times by 3 on the other side. So whatever 3 times 19 is, will be your answer. This 3 is being canceled out by that 3. Because division is being canceled out by multiplication. 3 times 19 ends up being 57, I believe. So R equals 57. Same thing right here. This is division. How do you undo division? Just like you did on this one. How do you undo division? The opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to take this side, your x divided by negative 9, and I'm going to start multiplying by negative 9. This left side gets multiplied by negative 9. Okay. Draw that. And the right side is multiplied by negative 9. It's a different way to write multiplication if you didn't know that. But the multiplying by negative 9 cancels out dividing by negative 9. The only thing that's left is x. On the right side, 8 times 9. Hopefully you know that that's 72. Positive times a negative is a negative 72. Okay, so in one step equations, all you got to do is the opposite to cancel the operation out. That's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.